So I can hear about a few hundred people shifting in their seats now and leaning in to hear Cantor Rosen's voice. It is very exciting to welcome him and his family to Holy Blossom Temple. We've been anticipating this first Shabbat that he is with us. You can hear his talent from the first note. You can read about his many accomplishments, which are so impressive. You can read about them in his biography on our website. But most importantly, I want everyone to know what his colleagues say about him. The North American cantors and rabbis who know Cantor Rosen say he is a mensch, and they say how very lucky we are to have him now among the leadership of Holy Blossom Temple. So welcome, Cantor Rosen. We look forward to many good years together with you and with your family. What's under normal circumstances, normal days? Do you remember normal days about 4 months ago? Normal days, what was the answer to the question, how are you? Fine, how are you? That was the answer. Fine, how are you? As if it's like one long word. And there was never even a pause between the question and the answer, and there was never a pause between the real answer, fine, and the next question, how are you? How are you? Fine, how are you? Have you noticed that that has changed? In normal days, the only time that question and that answer slows down typically is in 3 scenarios that I can think of. The first is when someone is sick. We ask them, how are you? And we really mean it. And we say it deliberately and slowly. And usually the answer, if they're in the mood, the answer comes with a pause, a moment of reflection, and then a real answer. Second scenario is when someone is in mourning. When we go to comfort them, we ask, how are you? And we really want to know. And even if the mourner isn't even yet capable to answer that question, they know it's asked sincerely, and they know that it elicits some kind of meaningful response, even if the response is just silence or just a sigh. How am I? I don't know. How am I? I don't know if I'm coming or going. How am I? That's still a good answer. The third scenario, when the question is asked deliberately, slowly, and answered in the same way, is when it's one true friend asking another true friend. In normal days, when a true friend asks another true friend, either over the phone or going for a walk together, and they say, so, how are you? They're really asking, and the other person knows it. And so the answer isn't simply, fine, how are you? The answer is the truth, or something resembling the truth. Have you noticed now that since coronavirus has struck our world and rocked our world, now when anyone asks, how are you? It's not just etiquette. They actually are asking. And usually the answer comes with a moment of pause and reflection. This happens now even with the person behind the counter. Have you noticed? There's an openness to hearing from one another. There's an openness to inquiring about one another's welfare. There's a kind of intimacy now, even among strangers. And I think this is worth noticing. Something has changed. The person answers now with a little more open heart, with a little bit more of a revealing and trusting response, more than just, fine, how are you? There's sometimes a partial answer, right? We need to move on through, there's someone else coming through the aisle now that needs to take a turn. But we might give a hint at the melancholy that we're feeling. We might give a hint about some worry that we're carrying, about our kids, about our aging parents. Even topics like mental health or financial strain are now included in those partial answers that we give when someone asks, "How are you?" Why have these formerly taboo subjects for polite company now become okay? Is it because we all now fall into that first category of someone who is either sick or vulnerable to becoming sick? Is it because we are all mourning some kind of loss? The loss of a loved one, God forbid, to coronavirus? Or more likely job loss or stability loss or normalcy loss? Or maybe because we are not quite all true friends, but we are more aware, we are certainly more aware of our common humanity, of the interconnectedness that weaves us all together. The Hebrew word for friend, the noun, is chaver. The verb lechaber, means to join, to attach, to connect. And so it could be that in some ways now we realize we're in that third category, to a degree much more so than we ever were. There is interdependence. There is interconnectedness and attachment. And so the answer is much more than "fine, how are you?" In this week's Torah portion, Parashat Balak, blessings and curses get all mixed up. You remember how it goes. Balaam is the idolatrous prophet who is hired by the king Balak, the enemy of Israel. And Balaam stands on the mountaintop overlooking the valley where the Israelites are encamped in their tents. And he intended a curse, but what came out instead was a blessing. The blessing we sing each morning as we begin our tefillah. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. How good are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. From a distance, blessings and curses get all mixed up. The distance between a blessing and a curse, now we see, is actually not so far as we might have once thought. With this new reality of ours, we know that blessings and curses are intertwined. And so I'd like to conclude by sharing with you a poem by Galway Kinnell, the Pulitzer Prize-winning American poet. It goes like this. I know there is still time for the hands to open, for the bones of them to be filled. By those failed harvests of want, the bread imagined of the days of not having. Now that the fear has been rummaged down to its husk and the wind blowing and flesh away translates itself into flesh, and the flesh gives itself in its reveries to the wind. I remember those summer nights when I was young and empty, when I lay through the darkness, wanting, knowing I have nothing of anything that I wanted, that total craving that hollows the heart out irreversibly. So it surprises me to hear the steps of my life following me now, so much of it gone. It returns. Everything that drove me crazy comes back, blessing the misery of each step it took me into the world, as though a prayer had ended and the bit of changed air between the palms goes free to become glitter on some common thing that inexplicably shines. The old voice which once made its broken off, choked parrot incoherences speaks again, this time on the pallidum cordis, the palate of the heart. This time saying, there is time, still time, for one who can groan to sing, for one who can sing to be healed. So today, this coronavirus, we recognize, invites us to pause and to reflect. Did all our blessings come with cursed strings attached and we didn't know it? And just as compelling a question now, does this coronavirus curse also come with blessings attached? Shabbat Shalom.